My name is Shipley, and I did not grow up in Waxahachie, but I've lived in Waxahachie since 1980 when I moved here for a job right after I graduated from Baylor Law School. I served as your county and district attorney here and as an assistant city attorney in Dallas, and I was in private law practice for 15 years before I retired in 2012. I'm the only city council member, I believe, that we have ever had who served on the Planning and Zoning Commission before I was elected to the council in 2014. Now, that experience gave me an immediate understanding of residential and commercial development issues that are complicated and that might otherwise have taken time to learn, but are really, these days, in the forefront of our responsibilities on the City Council because we are in a time of rapid growth. There's a lot more to being on the City Council than coming to a council meeting twice a month. Currently, I'm serving as the council liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which meets twice a month. I am liaison to the Senior Activity Center, meets quarterly. I'm liaison to the Heritage Preservation Commission, which meets once a month. I am also on the Economic Development Commission, which meets as called. I went back and looked when I was preparing for this and realized I had actually attended about 20 meetings in the month of March, so this is not a two-night-a-month job. In addition to those responsibilities, I've made it a point to attend as many of the city's various other committee meetings as possible, so I'll always be aware and current on issues that may not have actually made it to the council. That includes attending the Parks Board monthly, the Cemetery Board monthly, the Waxahachie Community Development Corporation monthly, the Keep Waxahachie Beautiful Committee monthly, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone is called, and recently the Community Strategic Planning Steering Committee. Additionally, I am an active member of Ferris Heights Methodist Church. I am looking forward to and hoping to serve you for another term because I find service on the council interesting, and my time is up. My vision of the city of Waxahachie is a city that has a strong sense of community, and I think we have that. I see Waxahachie as a city that is open, that operates in the open, and we do operate in the open. We have no problem with transparency. We have no problem with recording and broadcasting of our meetings. In fact, we encourage it. I also see Waxahachie as a city where it feels comfortable and safe just for us to get out and walk around in the neighborhoods and retail areas where our children are safe. I see Waxahachie as a city where you will encounter people you know when you go outside, when you go to the store, just walking around in your neighborhood. I see Waxahachie, and I know it is this way, but I see it as a city that reaches out to people that are in need. We have many resources for people that are in need. And I guess lastly, I see Waxahachie as a city where the citizens are proud of their schools and their neighborhoods and of their uniqueness. A city where we are proud of our past and we seek to preserve it, but where we are looking to the future and trying to reach out to everyone who comes in contact with us. I genuinely think we have very few weaknesses in our city staff and council at this time, but I spent a lot of time trying to think of what I could say on this, and I think the most significant one is probably that we need to be sure that we don't let our desire for development downtown and in other places overcome the importance of preserving our history, because that history is really what makes Waxahachie unique. I think that the greatest strength of the City Council and the staff is the experience and the institutional memory of several members that contributes to making wise decisions. And we do this by both remembering the past action and the results and Also having a willingness to try new things. I think the very greatest strength that we have in our city staff, which I can't praise highly enough, but I think that is they are excellent at hiring people. And that has resulted in major improvements in all departments. And when we start to do something, it gets done. It doesn't just get pushed back on a shelf. There's also great pride on the part of the staff and the council in some very progressive things that we've done in the last few years. We have rebuilt streets that were in terrible shape. We have improved drainage systems, which is not a real exciting thing unless it's flooding your yard or your alley or your street. We have added and upgraded parks. If you haven't already, drive over and take a look at Penn Park and see what it's like now compared to what it used to be. We've installed a splash pad at George Brown Plaza. We're in the midst of building an amphitheater downtown. People are excited and enthusiastic. The strongest opposition that I think I have had recently, and it related to what Mr. Bob mentioned, had to do with a special use permit for a new business on Howard Road. It was a concern to me because the traffic in and out of that place sometimes blocks the road. There was another entrance, another dock that could have been used, and I felt like it created a hazard to traffic in that case. But really, the strongest opposition I have had was a couple of years ago when we granted a special use permit for a recycling facility in an industrial area for a business that had basically been forced to move out of Dallas. The business had several fires on its premises. The neighbors opposed the facility. I was outvoted on the issue, but the real issue I think that it made me aware of is that we need to be sure that Dallas problems don't move south. What does the city need to improve on? Well, we're actually a well-organized, successful city, and I was interested because at a seminar I attended last year, the speaker went over a list of plans that every city ought to have. That is like a comprehensive plan, a capital improvement plan, a street improvement plan. There was a whole list of them. And as I sat there and listened, I was really pleased to realize that Waxahachie already had every one of those plans that was named. So from that standpoint, I think we're in pretty good shape. I do think we need to be sure that we pay attention to what the citizens want with respect to development, both in new areas and in historic areas. And this is already happening. And we get there by listening to people. We have many public meetings where not only regular council meetings, but when there's a big issue that comes up, we have a special meeting. People have the opportunity to have their say. Even if there is a room full of people and everybody in there wants to speak, we will stay and listen to what they have to say until everyone is finished. We need to work more on keeping our city clean and attractive. And this is a tough one because it really depends on the public. For example, I'm currently working on an issue with the cleanup of the corner of the bypass and Highway 77. This is the front door to our city, and some of you have probably noticed that the ditch there has been littered with trash for a long time. It's really the state's problem because that's state property, but the state's not going to do anything about it. So I'm working with the city manager and the parks department to get a plan for taking care of that. We have some problems. We are working on solutions for all of them. There are a few other issues, but those are the ones that I see at this time. As far as streaming all the meetings, it's really not quite that simple. We do stream. city council meetings. At times we were able to stream the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. There are personnel and there are costs involved, and that goes right back to your tax rate. But I want to talk just a minute about our major goals and some smaller goals as I have time to. My major goal really is to see a continuation of the planned high-quality growth that we have been achieving since I've been on the council. I want to see an emphasis on high quality. This includes measured growth in both residential, retail, and industrial areas, and there are several elements to that plan. There are some smaller goals that are parts of it. One of those smaller goals is to have a comprehensive plan as a guide to our growth. It's now time to update our comprehensive plan, and we're working on it. But, you know, if you don't have a map, you have a hard time getting where you're going. And that's what these plans are. Small goals, it means abiding by the standards that are set out in our zoning ordinance and in our thoroughfare plan. Those have been established to guide the growth that is coming. And it's much easier to manage a project when you have a plan ahead of time. For example, as far as street repairs go, how many of you know that we have a 5-year plan for street rehabilitation? And every street is listed on that plan. Okay, this year we will do these streets. The next year we will do another series of streets. This makes it easier for our streets department to schedule when various streets will be rehabilitated. And you've probably noticed that's going on in town for the last couple of years. And that is all my time. You know, I consider it a privilege to be on the Waxahachie City Council during this time of growth and change in our city. And there are challenges, no doubt about it. But we have so many things to be proud of and so many people in the past and present to thank for our accomplishments. It concerns me a lot to hear misstatements made that tend to make it look like we're madly spending tax money on foolish expenditures. And I've heard a lot of people talk about the amphitheater. The amphitheater is not being paid for with your property tax funds. It is being paid for with what we call 403 funds and funds basically that visitors to Waxahachie pay. Hotel and motel taxes. So when you hear about those things, remember, that is not your property tax that is paying for that, and it is misleading for someone to imply that. And those funds are limited in what they can be used for. We have had a lot of public meetings to try to figure out what the public wants and then to be responsive to that. Just a little example of that, and I really liked this one. You know, we've refurbished all our city parks, and there's a very small park, some of you, well, most of you probably do know about it. It's a very small park on Jefferson Street, Jefferson Avenue, in an older part of town. And we would have gotten new playground equipment for that park. But you know what? The people in the neighborhood didn't want new equipment in their neighborhood. They wanted us just to refurbish the old equipment. So that's what we did. In closing, I just want to say that it gives me a great deal of satisfaction to see the things that we're accomplishing in Waxahachie. I hope that you can see your way to re-electing me so I can continue to serve and make a contribution to this wonderful city.